Hey guys, tonight we're taking a deep dive into the glittering, yet often treacherous world of ancient fame. Forget the red carpets, the multi-million-dollar endorsements, and the carefully curated social media feeds of today's stars. Imagine a time before PR teams, before agents, before even the concept of privacy. We're talking about the very first ancient celebrities, and let me tell you, their lives were often absolutely awful. You probably wouldn't have survived a week in their sandals. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself standing amidst the roaring, sweaty crowds of the Circus Maximus in ancient Rome, perhaps around 100 CE. The sun beats down on the vast oval track, illuminating the dust kicked up by thundering hooves. The air vibrates with the collective roar of 250,000 spectators, a sound that's less human cheers and more primal, the guttural thunder. Your eyes, drawn by the spectacle, fix on a chariot, its driver a blur of color and motion. This isn't just any charioteer. This is Gaius Apuleius Diocles, perhaps the wealthiest athlete of all time, a man whose career earnings, if converted to modern currency, would dwarf those of today's biggest sports stars. He's the ancient equivalent of a superstar athlete, a rock star, and a reality TV sensation all rolled into one. And his life, despite the wealth, was a brutal tightrope walk on the edge of utter destruction. The very concept of celebrity in ancient times, especially in Rome, was born out of public spectacle, unlike today, where fame can come from acting, music, or even just social media presence. Ancient renown was often forged in the arena. Gladiators, charioteers, actors, and even certain philosophers or poets achieved a level of public recognition that was both intoxicating and incredibly dangerous. You can almost feel the collective gaze of the crowd, a hungry, demanding energy that lifts you up, but also threatens to consume you. It's like being trapped under the constant glare of 1,000 camera flashes, but with no off switch and no bodyguards. Consider the life of a charioteer like Diocles. Every race was a matter of life and death. The flimsy chariots, the powerful horses, the cutthroat tactics of rival drivers all combined to create a spectacle of incredible violence and speed. Broken bones, disfiguring scars, and fatal crashes were routine. Even if you won, you might only survive a few more races. Your fame was built on the constant risk of horrific injury or immediate death. Imagine living with that level of existential dread every single day, knowing that your next performance could very well be your last. It's not just a physically demanding job, it's a brutal psychological war. A common historical fact, often overlooked, is that many successful gladiators and charioteers were enslaved. While the most famous could eventually earn their freedom, and even immense wealth, their careers began and often continued under the ownership of powerful masters or wealthy patrons. This meant that despite their public adoration, they lacked true autonomy. Their bodies, their talents, and their very lives were commodities, bought and sold, managed by others who profited from their pain and daring. You might win 100 races, earn enough prize money to feed a city, but ultimately, your freedom was a gift, not a right. The pressure to constantly perform was immense. The crowds, fickle and bloodthirsty, demanded perfection and spectacle. A losing streak, even a single bad performance, could turn adoration into scorn, leading to dwindling support, loss of patronage, and eventually obscurity. And for a celebrity whose entire livelihood depended on public favor, obscurity was a fate worse than death. Imagine living under the constant burden of having to be on every single time, without fail. knowing that your continued existence depends on satisfying the insatiable appetite of a demanding public. It's like having your entire career hang on the outcome of a single football game. Every week, a unique or little-known detail about ancient fame is the sheer intensity of public fan bases, often bordering on obsessive. Roman charioteers, in particular, had fan clubs called factiones that were akin to modern-day sports hooligans, capable of intense loyalty, but also savage violence against rivals. Imagine walking through the streets and being mobbed by thousands of frenzied fans who not only adored you, but might also physically assault someone wearing the colors of a rival team. It wasn't just fan mail. It was often death threats and gang violence. It's a level of public interaction that would make even today's most jaded pop star cringe. The academic debate still rages about the precise social status of ancient celebrities. While their wealth and fame were undeniable, whether they were truly integrated into the upper echelons of society or remained viewed as glorified entertainers and objects of spectacle, and thus inherently lower class, remains a point of contention among historians. Their fame was powerful, but perhaps not truly respectable in the eyes of the elite. Consider the life of an ancient actor, like Roscius Gallus in ancient Rome, a contemporary of Cicero and a master of comedy and tragedy. While he achieved incredible wealth and even befriended powerful senators, his profession itself carried a stigma. Actors were often viewed with suspicion, associated with immorality and disrepute. Despite their popularity, they occupied a precarious social position, often denied full civic rights or respect due to their public performance. Imagine achieving immense fame and fortune, only to still be considered a low-status individual, forever tainted by your profession. It's like being the most famous person in the world, but still being treated like a glorified servant. The sheer physical demands of ancient acting were also brutal. Without microphones, actors had to project their voices to thousands in open-air amphitheaters. They performed for hours, often in heavy masks and elaborate costumes, under the scorching sun or in chilling winds. Their bodies were their instruments, constantly pushed to their limits, with little concept of vocal rest or physical therapy. Many suffered from chronic hoarseness, respiratory issues, and joint problems from years of strenuous performance. You can almost feel your throat raw from shouting, your muscles aching from exaggerated gestures, and your lungs burning from the effort. Then there was the constant vulnerability to the whims of patrons. Many ancient celebrities, whether athletes, actors, or artists, relied on the financial support and protection of powerful, wealthy individuals. This patronage came with strings attached. You were expected to perform on demand, to endure the eccentricities of your patron, and sometimes to compromise your artistic integrity or even your personal morals to maintain their favor. Displease a patron, and your career could be instantly ruined, your livelihood snatched away, and your very safety jeopardized. Imagine having your entire career depend on the unpredictable moods of a single, all-powerful individual. It's a form of servitude, just with a more glamorous facade. The lack of control over their own narratives was another brutal reality. Without modern media, ancient celebrities had little ability to shape their public image or respond to rumors. Gossip, slander, and malicious accusations could spread like wildfire through the Roman Forum or the Greek Agora, ruining reputations and careers with no opportunity for rebuttal. You were at the mercy of public opinion, a volatile and often cruel force. Imagine being unable to defend yourself against scurrilous lies, watching your reputation crumble, powerless to stop it. Even personal relationships were often complicated by fame. Roman emperors and powerful figures might take an interest in a popular gladiator or actor, not as an equal, but as an object of desire or a status symbol. This could lead to forced romantic entanglements, unwanted attention, and a complete lack of genuine private relationships. Your body, your time, and your affections were often not your own to give freely. It's a profound violation of personal autonomy, reducing you to a mere prize for the powerful. The sudden fall from grace was a terrifyingly common occurrence. One day, you're the toast of the town, showered with adulation and riches. The next, a new, younger talent emerges. Your performance falters, or a powerful enemy decides to ruin you. The fall could be swift and brutal, from public adoration to utter destitution, often with no safety net. Imagine going from living like a king, surrounded by adoring crowds, to begging on the streets, shunned by the very people who once cheered your name. The emotional whiplash, the complete loss of identity and purpose, would be devastating. It's a stark reminder of the fleeting nature of fame and the brutal consequences of its loss. So, as you slowly drift deeper into your slumber, reflect on the harsh realities faced by ancient celebrities. Their lives, though seemingly glamorous, were often defined by danger, exploitation, and the constant pressure of an insatiable public. It's a powerful reminder that fame, then as now, often comes at a brutal, unseen cost. You felt the immediate, brutal sting of ancient fame, where every performance was a gamble with your life and your autonomy was often a mere illusion. Now, let's delve deeper into the pervasive, soul-crushing reality of constant public scrutiny and the utter lack of privacy that defined the miserable lives of ancient celebrities. Imagine living every waking moment, and even some sleeping ones, under the unforgiving gaze of an entire city, with no escape. You find yourself in the bustling heart of ancient Athens, perhaps around 450 BCE, during the golden age of Greek theater. The Parthenon gleams majestically on the Acropolis, and the agora below buzzes with philosophical debate and lively commerce. You are a renowned tragedian, perhaps a contemporary of Sophocles or Euripides, a master of your craft whose performances can sway thousands. Every step you take in the agora, every meal you eat in a public tavern, every word you utter is noticed, discussed, and dissected by the populace. You can almost feel the weight of countless eyes on you, the murmur of your name as you pass, and the inescapable sense that your life is no longer your own, but a public spectacle. In ancient societies, especially those with strong public forms like the Roman Forum or the Greek Agora, there was no concept of a private life for those in the public eye. Your home might offer some refuge, but stepping outside meant immediately becoming public property. Your appearance, your companions, your habits, everything was fair game for gossip, rumor, and sometimes harsh judgment. You were always on, always performing, even when you weren't on stage or in the arena. It's like living in a giant open-air reality show where the cameras never turn off and the audience is perpetually hungry for your next move. Consider the constant, unrelenting gossip and slander. Without newspapers, television, or the internet, news and rumors spread by word of mouth, amplified by the sheer volume of people in close proximity. A misinterpreted glance, a private conversation overheard, or a fabricated story could quickly morph into widespread public opinion, damaging your reputation and livelihood. There was no PR team to issue damage control, no lawyer to send cease and desist letters. You were utterly defenseless against the relentless tide of public opinion, a brutal force that could elevate you one day and utterly destroy you the next. You can almost hear the whispered accusations, the snickers from passers-by, and the chilling realization that your reputation, built on years of hard work, could be shattered by a single, baseless rumor. A common historical fact is that public figures in ancient Rome were often subjected to extremely personal and often brutal verbal attacks in public speeches like Cicero's orations or satirical plays. These attacks, which would be considered libelous and defamatory today, were a common part of political and social discourse, Leaving the targets with little recourse, imagine being skewered in a play performed for thousands, your private life or perceived flaws exaggerated for public amusement with no way to respond or defend yourself. The lack of control over your image was profound. As an actor, you wore masks. As a charioteer, your face might be obscured by a helmet. The public knew your name, your achievements, but your true self remained largely invisible, replaced by the persona they constructed from your performances and the endless gossip. You became a caricature, a symbol, rather than a person. This psychological detachment from your own identity, the forced public persona, could be incredibly isolating. It's like having everyone know your stage name, but no one really knowing you. A unique or little-known detail is the ancient practice of writing graffiti about celebrities. Roman cities, especially Pompeii, are filled with ancient graffiti scrawled on walls, everything from love declarations to political endorsements to crude jokes and insults about public figures. Imagine waking up to find crude drawings or vicious insults about you plastered on the walls of your own city. A public humiliation for all to see. This wasn't just online trolling, this was real, physical defacement, inescapable and permanent, a brutal public shaming. The academic debate still rages about the precise role of ancient poetry and satire in shaping public perception of celebrities. While it's clear they were powerful tools, whether they truly reflected widespread public opinion or merely represented the views of a literate elite remains a subject of scholarly discussion. Consider the relentless demands on your time. As a public figure, your time was rarely your own. You were expected to attend public functions, to be seen, to engage with admirers, and to constantly uphold your public image. There was little opportunity for quiet contemplation, for genuine rest, or for cultivating private hobbies. Your life became a perpetual performance, driven by the demands of others. You might long for a simple, anonymous walk through the countryside, but such a luxury was utterly out of reach. Even your personal relationships were under scrutiny. If you were a famous Roman orator or general, your marriage, your children, your friendships, all were subject to public opinion and political maneuvering. A perceived weakness in your domestic life could be exploited by political rivals. A scandal involving a family member could taint your own reputation. You couldn't just have a normal life. Every relationship was a potential headline, a source of vulnerability. It's like trying to have a private dinner with your spouse, knowing that 100 eyes are watching, analyzing every gesture for signs of discord. The very adulation could be a form of brutal pressure. While it felt good to be cheered, it also meant that any perceived misstep would be magnified. The higher you soared, the harder you could fall. The adoration was conditional, fleeting, and based on your ability to continuously entertain and impress. It's like standing on a precarious pedestal, knowing that a single tremor could send you crashing down, shattering not just your career, but your sense of self-worth. The expectation of accessibility was also intense. There were no bouncers, no velvet ropes. A famous gladiator might be approached directly by an adoring fan, or a playwright might be cornered by a demanding patron. Your personal space was constantly invaded, your boundaries ignored. You were public property, available for interaction, for requests, for judgment, whether you wanted to be or not. Imagine trying to simply exist when your personal bubble is constantly being popped by strangers. The lack of personal safety was another brutal aspect. While adoring fans might cheer you, disgruntled rivals or obsessive detractors could pose a very real threat. There were no dedicated security teams. A popular charioteer could be targeted by a rival faction. A controversial actor might face threats from those offended by their work. Your fame, in some ways, made you more vulnerable, a beacon for both adoration and malice. You lived with a constant low hum of anxiety, knowing that popularity could also be a magnet for danger. So, as you slowly drift deeper into your slumber, let the pervasive reality of ancient public scrutiny settle over you. Remember the lack of privacy, the relentless gossip, and the constant pressure that defined the lives of those first celebrities. Their misery was the price of their fame, a chilling reminder that the spotlight, even in antiquity, cast long, dark shadows. You've felt the unrelenting gaze of the ancient public, the suffocating lack of privacy that turned every celebrity's life into an inescapable performance. Now, let's explore the terrifying precarity of ancient fame, the fragility of their reputations, and the brutal, often irreversible, speed at which their careers and lives could unravel. Unlike today, where a star might have multiple comebacks, ancient falls from grace were often absolute, leaving their subjects in utter ruin. You find yourself in the bustling, often cutthroat world of imperial Rome, around 50 CE. You are a successful gladiator, perhaps a Thracian or a Myrmilio, a champion of the arena, whose name is whispered with awe by the crowds. Your body is a testament to countless battles, scarred but triumphant. Your coffers are full, and powerful patrons seek your favor. But you've just lost a fight, not to death, but to a skilled, younger opponent. The roar of the crowd, usually a symphony of adulation, now contains a discernible note of disappointment, even scorn. You can almost feel the shift in the air, the cooling of the public's enthusiasm, and the chilling realization that your reign at the top is already beginning to slip. Ancient fame was incredibly fleeting, built on a foundation of constant success and physical prowess. For an athlete, one injury, one aging performance, or the emergence of a more charismatic rival could spell the end. There were no long-term contracts, no guaranteed endorsements beyond your immediate performance. Your value was directly tied to your ability to win, to entertain, to thrill the masses. Once that ability wavered, even slightly, the public's fickle attention would pivot to the next sensation, leaving you behind to face a harsh reality. A common historical fact is that many gladiators, even the champions, had relatively short careers due to the immense physical toll and high risk of injury or death. Those who survived often bore severe disfigurements, making further performance difficult, if not impossible. Imagine your entire livelihood, your very identity, being dependent on a body that is constantly being battered, knowing that one wrong blow could consign you to a life of begging or obscurity. The brutal speed of a fall from grace could be triggered not just by performance, but by scandal or political disfavor. Imagine being a renowned poet or orator in ancient Athens or Rome. Your words sway senates. Your verses are recited in every household. But then you express an opinion that offends a powerful politician, or you are implicated in a personal scandal, real or fabricated, that violates societal norms. Suddenly, your public speaking engagements dry up, your patrons withdraw their support, and your works are no longer celebrated. Your livelihood, dependent on public favor and aristocratic patronage, vanishes almost overnight. You can almost feel the chilling silence from former admirers, the turning of backs, and the profound sense of betrayal as the world that once celebrated you now shuns you. A unique or little-known detail is the Roman practice of damnatio memoriae, the condemnation of memory. While mostly applied to emperors or political figures, certain public figures could also suffer a similar, albeit unofficial, fate. If you fell severely out of favor with the ruling powers, your statues might be pulled down, your name chiseled off public monuments, and your achievements actively erased from public record. This wasn't just a career ender, it was an attempt to obliterate your very existence from history, a brutal form of public execution by forgetting. Imagine dedicating your life to achieving greatness, only for the state to actively work to erase every trace of your legacy. The academic debate still rages about the precise mechanisms through which ancient public opinion shifted so dramatically and rapidly. While scholars agree on the volatility of crowds, the exact interplay between elite manipulation, popular sentiment, and the sudden emergence of new figures remains a complex subject of historical inquiry. Consider the life of an Olympic athlete in ancient Greece. Achieving victory in the Olympic Games brought immense honor, not just to yourself, but to your entire city-state. Statues would be erected in your honor, poems written about your deeds, and you might even receive lifelong provisions. But those moments of glory were fleeting. An injury, a single loss, or simply aging out of your prime meant a swift return to relative obscurity. There was no professional sports league with long-term careers. Your peak was sharp and brief, and the rest of your life could be a long, quiet descent from past glory. You can almost feel the fading cheers in your ears, replaced by the mundane sounds of daily life, a stark reminder of how quickly the spotlight could move on. The nature of their contracts, or lack thereof, also contributed to this fragility. Most ancient celebrities operated under informal patronage agreements or on a performance-by-performance basis. There was little to no job security. A patron could withdraw their support on a whim, leaving you without income or protection. Your ability to negotiate was limited by your social status and the constant availability of other desperate talents willing to take your place. It was a brutal free market, where only the consistently exceptional could hope for temporary stability. Even for those who achieved wealth, maintaining it was a constant challenge. There were no diversified investment portfolios. Wealth was often tied to land, a patron's favor, or the continued ability to perform. A bad harvest, a change in imperial favor, or a debilitating injury could swiftly wipe out your assets, leaving you exposed and vulnerable. Imagine accumulating immense wealth through your talents, only to lose it all due to circumstances beyond your control, with no safety net to catch your fall. The lack of control over their narrative after retirement or decline was also brutal. Without modern biographies, documentaries, or carefully curated archives, your story was often told by others, sometimes by rivals, long after you were gone. Your legacy could be manipulated, your achievements downplayed, and your flaws exaggerated. The way you were remembered, or whether you were remembered at all, was largely out of your hands, making your fame a fleeting echo in the vast, unforgiving expanse of history. The ancient world's capacity for cruelty, particularly towards those who had once been celebrated, was profound. A fallen celebrity, once adored, could become an object of public derision, even mockery. You might be forced to perform in lesser venues, or even resort to begging, a humiliating fall from grace for someone who once commanded the cheers of thousands. The very public that had once elevated you could now revel in your misfortune, a testament to the brutal fickleness of fame. Think of the emotional toll this constant precarity would take, the anxiety of every performance, the fear of injury, the dread of scandal, the paranoia of losing a patron's favor. All these pressures would build up, creating a constant state of mental exhaustion. The highs were exhilarating, but the lows were devastating, and the fear of the fall was ever present. This was not a life of serene contentment, but a perpetual struggle against the forces that threatened to snatch away everything you had gained. So, as you slowly drift deeper into your slumber, let the stark reality of ancient fame's fragility wash over you. Remember the swift, brutal falls from grace, the desperate struggle to maintain relevance, and the profound vulnerability that lay beneath the glittering facade of celebrity. It's a sobering reminder that for ancient stars, the spotlight, though dazzling, was often a very precarious, very dangerous place to stand. You've witnessed the terrifying fragility of ancient fame, how swiftly adoration could turn to indifference or even scorn. Now, let's pull back the curtain on an even darker aspect of their lives, the insidious ways in which powerful elites, emperors, and wealthy patrons exerted their control, often leading to exploitation and outright abuse of ancient celebrities. Their talent, their bodies, and their lives were often treated as commodities, to be bought, used, and discarded at whim. You find yourself in the opulent, yet suffocating, atmosphere of Emperor Nero's court in Rome. Around 60 CE, the air is thick with incense, the murmur of sycophantic courtiers, and the faint, unsettling echo of the emperor's latest artistic whim. You are a renowned musician, a citharode, a singer and lyre player, whose melodies can charm the most hardened senators. Your fame has brought you to the heart of power, a dangerous place indeed. You are now expected to perform not just in public arenas, but in private banquets, at the emperor's command, sometimes for hours on end, catering to his unpredictable moods. You can almost feel the chill of a single piercing stare from Nero, the sudden tension in the room, and the chilling realization that your artistic freedom, and perhaps your very life, now belongs to a capricious ruler. In ancient Rome, especially during the imperial period, the lines between patron and performer were often blurred, and the power dynamic was overwhelmingly one-sided. Emperors like Nero, himself a self-proclaimed artist, demanded constant entertainment and often treated famous performers as personal property. You could be summoned at any hour, forced to perform even when ill or exhausted, simply because the emperor desired it. Refusal was not an option. It could mean immediate imprisonment, banishment, or worse, your talent, which brought you fame, now became a gilded chain, binding you to the will of an all-powerful master. A common historical fact, often highlighted in biographical accounts of Roman emperors, is their tendency to surround themselves with personal entertainers who were entirely at their mercy. These performers were essentially highly prized slaves or dependents, whose lives were utterly beholden to the whims of their imperial masters. This was not a mutually beneficial contract. It was a form of ownership. The abuse wasn't always overtly violent. It was often psychological. Imagine being a renowned poet, celebrated throughout the empire, but now compelled to write flattering verses about a tyrannical emperor, even if you secretly despised him. Your artistic integrity, your very voice, was compromised, forced to serve propaganda rather than truth. Or you might be a famous comedian, forced to make jokes that demeaned rivals of the emperor, or to participate in humiliating skits designed to entertain a cruel audience. Your art became a tool for others' political games, stripping it of its original purpose and your own creative spirit. You can almost feel the bitter taste of forced laughter in your mouth, the internal cringe as you deliver a line that goes against your conscience, and the profound sense of self-betrayal. A unique or little-known detail of this abuse was the practice of adornment. While some emperors genuinely appreciated art, others saw famous individuals as living trophies. A powerful Roman noble might force a beloved actor to wear a ridiculous costume or perform in a demeaning way simply to demonstrate their absolute control. Or they might demand a charioteer drive a certain, more dangerous style of race purely for their own amusement, regardless of the driver's safety. This wasn't about enhancing the performance. It was about asserting dominance, turning a celebrated individual into a mere plaything, stripping them of dignity. Imagine being paraded around like an exotic pet, your fame used against you to underscore your master's power. The academic debate still rages about the precise line between consensual patronage and outright exploitation for ancient performers. While the inherent power imbalance is clear, historians often debate the extent to which performers could negotiate terms, maintain some agency, or secretly resist the more egregious demands of their patrons, particularly those as powerful as emperors. Consider the sexual exploitation. For many ancient celebrities, particularly female performers like actresses or singers, their beauty and talent were often seen as invitations for sexual advances from powerful patrons, nobles, or even emperors. Resistance could be dangerous, potentially leading to the end of their careers, social ruin, or worse. Their bodies were often treated as commodities, their personal autonomy non-existent when faced with someone of higher status. You can almost feel the chilling sense of vulnerability, the constant need to navigate treacherous social waters, and the agonizing knowledge that your personal safety and dignity were always at risk from those who held power over you. The abuse could also come in the form of public humiliation. An emperor might, on a whim, decide to publicly ridicule a famous performer for a perceived slight or simply for entertainment. This could involve forcing them into degrading acts, stripping them of their honors, or publicly discrediting their talent for someone whose entire identity was built on public adoration. Such a public shaming was a profound and brutal form of torture designed to break their spirit and demonstrate the absolute power of the ruler. Imagine being the subject of cruel jokes and open contempt from the very person who once lauded you, with thousands of eyes watching your humiliation. Even seemingly positive attention could be a form of abuse. Being showered with gifts, privileges, and seemingly endless favors by a powerful patron could come with an invisible, yet binding, set of chains. You became indebted, reliant, and utterly subservient. Your life, though outwardly luxurious, was entirely controlled by the whims of your benefactor. This was a sophisticated form of control, making escape or defiance almost impossible without risking utter ruin. It's like being given a golden cage with no key. The concept of a golden leash was particularly true for those who sought to retire or refuse performance. Once you were a celebrated commodity, releasing you could be seen as a loss of investment or a challenge to authority. Patrons might refuse to let you go, or make your life outside their patronage impossible. You were trapped by your own success, forced to continue performing until your body or spirit simply gave out. You can almost feel the longing for a simple, quiet life, constantly denied by the demands of a fame you no longer desired. The very public adoration could be exploited. Powerful individuals would often associate themselves with popular celebrities to gain public favor. You might be forced to appear at political rallies, lend your image to a cause you didn't believe in, or endorse a candidate you despised. Your fame, your influence, was co-opted for someone else's agenda, turning you into a propaganda tool, a mouthpiece for a system that often exploited you. It was a cynical manipulation of public sentiment, with you as the unwilling instrument. So, as you slowly drift deeper into your slumber, let the dark shadow of power and abuse fall over you. Remember the miserable lives of ancient celebrities, whose fame often came at the cost of their freedom, their dignity, and sometimes their very lives, all at the whim of those who held ultimate power. It's a sobering reminder that even in the brightest spotlights, true freedom can be elusive. You've witnessed the brutal manipulations of powerful patrons and emperors, turning ancient celebrities into glorified puppets. Now, let's confront an even more visceral and demeaning aspect of their lives, the chilling reality that their bodies, their talents, and even their physical appearance were often treated as commodities, exploited for profit, pleasure, and the insatiable entertainment of the masses. This was not about artistic expression. It was about being a marketable product, often with little regard for personal dignity or well-being. You find yourself in the notoriously rowdy and often depraved public baths of ancient Rome, perhaps around 150 CE. The air is thick with steam, the murmur of hundreds of voices, and the mingling scents of olive oil and sweat. You are a highly skilled gladiator, renowned for your physique and your prowess in the arena. Even outside the bloody sand, your body is not your own. You are expected to exhibit it, to be admired, sometimes even to endure unwanted physical contact from adoring or aggressive fans. You can almost feel the uncomfortable stares, the hands that might reach out to touch your scarred arm or muscled back, and the profound sense that your physical self, honed through brutal training, is now mere public property, an object of fascination and consumption. For gladiators, their bodies were quite literally their capital. They were trained, fed, and housed with the explicit purpose of becoming killing machines or thrilling spectacles. Their physique, their strength, and their ability to inflict or endure pain were marketable assets. They were paraded, advertised, and put on display, not just in the arena, but sometimes in public processions or private gatherings, like exotic animals. Imagine the dehumanization of being reduced to a collection of muscles and scars, valued only for your ability to entertain through violence. It's a brutal form of commodification, where your very essence is sold for public consumption. A common historical fact is that successful gladiators often had their likenesses reproduced on lamps, pottery, and other household items, making them early examples of branded merchandise. While this might seem like a mark of fame, it also meant their image was entirely out of their control, replicated endlessly for profit, turning them into ubiquitous, depersonalized symbols of entertainment. Consider the actors and actresses of ancient Greece and Rome. Their faces, their voices, and their physical grace were their tools. But their performances were often incredibly demanding, pushing their bodies and vocal cords to the limit without modern techniques for preservation or recovery. Ancient masks, while iconic, also meant that their individual facial expressions were hidden, forcing them to rely on exaggerated body language and vocal projection to convey emotion. This was physically taxing, leading to chronic strain and injury. You can almost feel the strain in your throat from projecting your voice across a vast amphitheater, the stiffness in your limbs from holding exaggerated poses, and the sheer exhaustion of performing for hours under a relentless sun. For female performers, the commodification of their bodies was even more explicit and brutal. Actresses and mimes were often associated with prostitution and low social status. Regardless of their talent, their physical appearance was paramount, and they were constantly judged, admired, and often subjected to unwanted sexual advances from male patrons and audience members. Their stage was not just a platform for art, but a marketplace where their bodies were implicitly or explicitly on offer. Imagine the constant vulnerability, the need to navigate predatory attention, and the grinding indignity of knowing your worth was often measured by your physical attractiveness rather than your artistic skill. A unique or little-known detail is the Roman practice of sine gladiatorie, public banquets held the night before gladiatorial games, where the gladiators themselves were put on display for the public to observe, almost like livestock being inspected before market. This wasn't a celebratory meal for the fighters. It was a brutal spectacle where their bodies were openly scrutinized, weighed, and discussed, enhancing the public's anticipation for the carnage to come. Imagine trying to eat a meal, knowing that hundreds of eyes are dissecting your physique, sizing you up for tomorrow's fight, treating you less like a human and more like a slab of meat. The academic debate still rages about the precise extent to which ancient actresses and female performers were genuinely engaged in sex work as part of their profession, versus simply being stereotyped or exploited due to their low social status and public exposure. While historical records offer glimpses, the full truth of their agency and circumstances remains a complex area of scholarly interpretation. Even musicians and dancers face this commodification. Their agility, their rhythm, their ability to evoke emotion through movement, all were assets to be bought and sold. They might be forced to perform for endless hours at a private banquet, or to participate in raucous festivals, their bodies treated as machines for entertainment. Repetitive strain injuries, exhaustion, and the relentless pressure to maintain peak physical condition were constant burdens. You can almost feel the burning in your muscles from dancing for hours, the ache in your fingers from plucking strings, and the relentless demand to produce beauty on command, even when your body screamed for rest. The expectation of physical perfection was brutal. For actors, beauty standards were rigid, dictating who could play what roles. For athletes, any physical imperfection or sign of weakness could diminish their public appeal and commercial value. They lived under constant pressure to maintain an idealized physique, often through harsh diets and relentless training regimes, sacrificing their comfort and long-term health for fleeting aesthetic perfection. It's like being trapped in a permanent, unforgiving beauty pageant where your entire livelihood depends on meeting an impossible standard. The brutal reality of ancient celebrity was that it often led to a profound loss of bodily autonomy. Whether enslaved or free, your body became an instrument for public consumption. You couldn't simply say no to a performance, a private summons, or even an unwanted touch from a powerful admirer. Your physical self was, in many ways, no longer truly yours. This constant objectification and lack of control over your own physicality was a deeply dehumanizing experience, stripping away your fundamental right to self-determination. Think of the glamour of those ancient lives, often built on a foundation of pain, the cheers of the crowd, the lavish gifts, the temporary prestige, all came at the expense of your personal freedom, your bodily integrity, and often your very life. You were a spectacle, a product, a living testament to the powerful's ability to consume and exploit. So, as you slowly drift deeper into your slumber, let the stark reality of commodified bodies and exploited talents wash over you. Remember the miserable lives of ancient celebrities, whose brilliance and beauty often became their own gilded cages, sold for the pleasure and profit of others. It's a chilling reminder that the spotlight, then as now, can demand a brutal unseen price. You've witnessed the brutal commodification of the ancient celebrity's body and talent, reduced to a mere spectacle for public consumption. Now, let's explore a deeper, often more insidious form of misery, the profound loneliness and emotional isolation that often plagued even the most adored ancient stars. Despite being surrounded by legions of fans and powerful patrons, true connection and authentic relationships were often elusive, leaving them solitary figures atop a precarious pedestal. You find yourself in the bustling streets of ancient Alexandria, Egypt, around 50 BCE, a city renowned for its intellectual prowess and vibrant culture. You are a celebrated philosopher or scholar, perhaps known for your eloquent lectures in the great library. Crowds flock to hear your words, students hang on your every utterance, and influential figures seek your wisdom. Yet, as you return to your modest dwelling at the end of a long day, the cheers fade, the debates cease, and you are left with a profound sense of solitude. You can almost feel the intellectual energy of the day draining away, replaced by the quiet hum of the night, and the stark realization that your profound thoughts are often shared with an admiring crowd, but rarely with a truly empathetic soul. For ancient intellectuals, poets, orators, and even some artists, their fame often stemmed from their unique intellectual gifts. This very uniqueness could be a source of isolation. Who could truly understand the intricate workings of their minds, the complex ideas they grappled with, or the creative struggles they faced? Their admirers revered their intellect, but rarely did they penetrate the layers of public persona to connect on a deeply human level. It's like being trapped in a glass box. Everyone can see you, hear you, applaud you, but no one can truly touch you. A common historical fact, often exemplified by figures like Plato or Seneca, is that even ancient philosophers, despite having students and circles of acquaintances, frequently wrote about the nature of solitude and the challenges of true friendship amidst the superficiality of public life. They grappled with the very emotional isolation that their fame often created. The social barriers around ancient celebrities were immense. While they might interact with powerful figures, these relationships were often transactional, based on patronage and mutual benefit rather than genuine affection. The power imbalance made true peer relationships difficult. And for celebrities from lower social strata, like gladiators or actors, their fame, while bringing wealth, didn't erase the deep-seated social stigma. They might be admired from afar, but rarely accepted as equals by the social elite. This created a profound sense of otherness, isolating them even amidst their celebrity. A unique or little-known detail is the psychological impact of being constantly watched but rarely seen. Ancient celebrities, as we've discussed, lived under constant public scrutiny. This meant that while their every move was observed, those observations were often superficial, focusing on their performance, their appearance, or their scandals, rather than their inner lives. No one truly asked how they felt, what their dreams were beyond their next performance, or what fears plagued them. They were public property, not individuals with complex emotional landscapes. Imagine living in a constant state of performance, never truly being able to drop the mask, even in moments that should be private. The academic debate still rages about the precise extent to which ancient celebrities developed coping mechanisms for their profound isolation. While some found solace in philosophy or limited trusted circles, whether these were sufficient to truly combat the loneliness or merely offered temporary respite remains a complex subject of psychological and historical inquiry. Consider the life of a famous charioteer, surrounded by cheering crowds, managing a massive household, and constantly sought after. Yet, who could he truly confide in about the crushing pressure of risking his life every day? The lingering pain of old injuries, or the fear of a career-ending crash. His peers were rivals, his patrons were masters, and his fans were a fickle mob. The intense competition of his profession meant that genuine camaraderie was rare, making him a solitary figure even among his own kind. You can almost feel the adrenaline rush of the race fading, leaving behind a hollow quietness, a stark contrast to the deafening roar of the circus and the profound realization that you are utterly alone with your anxieties. Even romantic relationships were often complicated by fame. For men, their popularity might attract countless admirers, but discerning genuine affection from opportunistic advances would be incredibly difficult. For women, their fame often came with intense objectification, as we've discussed, making truly egalitarian or loving relationships a rare luxury. The line between admirer and exploiter was constantly blurred. Trust became a precious, almost unattainable commodity. You might be desired by many, but truly loved by few, if any. The constant travel required for performances, whether for an actor touring the Roman Empire or an athlete competing in the Pan-Hellenic Games, further exacerbated this loneliness. You were always on the move, never truly rooted anywhere, forming transient connections that rarely deepened into lasting bonds. Your home became a series of temporary lodgings, your companions fellow travelers rather than lifelong friends. Imagine the profound sense of rootlessness, the yearning for stability and belonging that constantly eluded you. The burden of expectation also contributed to their isolation. Once you reached a certain level of fame, you were expected to maintain it, to constantly exceed expectations. This pressure could make you wary of forming close bonds, fearing that any perceived weakness or vulnerability might be exploited or simply disillusion your admirers. You were forced to maintain a facade of strength, perfection, or invincibility, pushing away anyone who might see the real you. It's like living under the constant burden of an impossible ideal, isolating you from genuine human connection. The tragic reality for many was that their fame, while bringing wealth and adoration, alienated them from the simple, authentic joys of anonymous life. They couldn't walk freely in public, engage in mundane activities without being recognized, or simply blend into a crowd. Their notoriety became a wall, separating them from ordinary human experience. You might long for the simple anonymity of a common citizen, but that life was irrevocably lost the moment your name became widely known. Ultimately, the dazzling spotlight of ancient celebrity, while casting a brilliant glow, also created deep, isolating shadows. It elevated individuals to godlike status in the public eye, but often at the expense of their fundamental human need for genuine connection and belonging. They were admired, but rarely truly understood, celebrated, but profoundly alone. So, as you slowly drift deeper into your slumber, let the profound loneliness of ancient fame settle over you. Remember the hidden anguish of those adored figures whose lives, despite their outward splendor, were often marked by a crushing sense of isolation. It's a poignant reminder that true connection is a treasure, far more valuable than fleeting adulation. You've glimpsed the profound loneliness that haunted ancient celebrities, isolated even amidst their throngs of admirers. Now, let's talk about a relentless, soul-crushing pressure that defined their every public moment, the unyielding burden of constant performance and the agonizing need to perpetually meet or exceed public expectation. For ancient stars, their very livelihood, identity, and safety depended on their ability to deliver perfection. Every single time you find yourself in the magnificent, yet imposing Colosseum in Rome around 80 CE, the roar of 80,000 spectators echoes through the massive amphitheater, a deafening wave of expectation. You are a veteran gladiator, perhaps a retiarius with your net and trident, about to face a formidable opponent. Every move you make, every feint, every thrust will be judged by a hungry, bloodthirsty crowd, and by the emperor himself. There are no second takes, no dress rehearsals. Your life and your reputation hinge on this one brutal performance. You can almost feel the sweat trickling down your back beneath your armor, the pounding of your heart against your ribs, and the suffocating pressure of knowing that anything less than perfection, anything less than a thrilling spectacle, could mean your demise, either by your opponent's blade or the emperor's thumb. For ancient performers, the line between success and failure was razor thin, and the consequences of failure were often dire. Unlike today, where a bad movie or a flopped album might mean a temporary career setback, an ancient actor who forgot lines, a charioteer who crashed, or a gladiator who faltered could face immediate professional ruin, physical punishment, or even death. The public's appetite for entertainment was insatiable and unforgiving. They demanded constant novelty, constant brilliance, and constant spectacle. A common historical fact is that Roman gladiators, even the most skilled, could be subjected to the missio decision to spare or kill based on the crowd's reaction and the emperor's will. A poor performance, even if you survived the fight, could lead to public humiliation and a swift end to your career, forcing you into early retirement or even selling yourself back into service. Imagine surviving a brutal battle, only to be judged unworthy by the crowd, stripped of your glory, and left to face an uncertain, impoverished future. The demand for constant innovation and freshness was another brutal pressure. If you were a playwright in Athens, you were expected to produce new, compelling tragedies or comedies for each festival, pushing the boundaries of storytelling. If you were an orator in the Roman Forum, your speeches had to be fresh, impactful, and politically astute, always outmaneuvering your rivals. You couldn't rest on your laurels. The public demanded new material, new ideas, new thrills. This was a relentless creative treadmill, forcing ancient celebrities to constantly reinvent themselves or fade into obscurity. You can almost feel the mental exhaustion of trying to conjure fresh ideas, the fear of repetition, and the crushing weight of knowing that your audience is always expecting something more. A unique or little-known detail is the sheer physical and mental toll of continuous touring for ancient performers. Greek actors might travel across the Mediterranean to perform in various city-states, enduring arduous journeys by sea or land, often in uncomfortable conditions. Roman entertainers followed the legions, performing in newly conquered territories. This meant constant adaptation to new venues, different acoustics, and sometimes unfamiliar audiences. They were always on the road, their lives a perpetual motion of performance, with little stability or personal comfort. Imagine the physical strain of constant travel, the emotional drain of always being on, and the profound homesickness for a place you rarely got to stay. The academic debate still rages about the precise methods ancient actors used for vocal training and projection to fill vast outdoor amphitheaters without microphones. While historians hypothesize about specific techniques and the use of masks to amplify sound, the immense physical requirements and the long-term impact on their vocal cords remain subjects of ongoing scholarly discussion. Consider the pressure to maintain a perfect public image. As an ancient celebrity, your behavior outside the arena or stage was also scrutinized. Any hint of scandal, drunkenness, or impropriety could quickly erode public trust and affection, regardless of your talent. You were expected to embody the virtues admired by society, to be a moral exemplar, even if your private life was a mess. This forced adherence to an idealized persona, the constant vigilance against misstep, was a form of exhausting self-censorship. You can almost feel the stifling weight of forced perfection, the constant fear of being caught in a compromising situation, and the profound discomfort of living a life that was not truly your own. The physical demands of maintaining peak performance were also immense. For athletes, this meant relentless training, often with primitive sports medicine and a high risk of career-ending injuries. For actors, it meant rigorous vocal exercises, memorizing vast amounts of text, and enduring the discomfort of elaborate costumes and masks. Their bodies were tools, constantly pushed to their breaking point, with little regard for long-term health. The concept of burnout was likely rampant, though unspoken. You might feel your muscles scream for rest, your voice grow hoarse, but the demands of the next performance, the next race, the next speech, were always paramount. Even the threat of public violence played into this pressure. If a performance was deemed unsatisfactory, or if a gladiator refused to fight to the death when expected, the crowd's dissatisfaction could turn into a dangerous riot. Objects might be thrown, and a celebrity could face direct physical assault from a furious mob. This wasn't just about disappointing an audience. It was about inciting a dangerous reaction that could directly threaten your life or limb. You can almost feel the sudden shift in the crowd's mood, the menacing rumble of their discontent, and the immediate surge of terror knowing that their adoration could, at any moment, transform into violent rage. The brutal reality was that your personal feelings, your fatigue, your pain, or your own artistic vision were often irrelevant. The public, the patrons, and the emperors dictated what you performed, how you performed it, and to what extent you pushed yourself. You were a servant of the spectacle, your individuality subsumed by the demands of the masses. This constant subjugation of self, this forced adherence to external expectations, chipped away at your spirit, leaving you hollowed out, even as you achieved unparalleled fame. So, as you slowly drift deeper into your slumber, let the relentless pressure of ancient performance settle upon you. Remember the crushing weight of expectation, the constant need for perfection, and the ever-present threat of failure that defined the miserable lives of ancient celebrities. It's a poignant reminder that even the brightest spotlights can cast the darkest, most unforgiving shadows. You felt the crushing weight of public expectation, the constant demand for perfect performance that left ancient celebrities perpetually on edge. Now, let's delve into perhaps the most tragic and inescapable aspect of their miserable lives, the pervasive threat of illness, injury, and premature death. Often exacerbated by their demanding professions and the primitive nature of ancient medicine, their fame, rather than protecting them, often pushed them towards a quicker, more brutal end. You find yourself in a grim, dimly lit room behind the gladiatorial arena in ancient Capua, a gladiatorial training school in southern Italy around 70 BCE. The air is heavy with the stench of sweat, blood, and antiseptic herbs. You are a veteran gladiator, your body a map of old scars, and today you've sustained a deep gash to your thigh. A gruff medic, his hands calloused and stained, is attempting to bind the wound with coarse linen and a crude poultice. There's no sterile environment, no pain medication beyond perhaps a swig of rough wine. Infection is almost a certainty. You can almost feel the searing pain as the crude bandage is tightened, the dull throbbing that begins to set in, and the terrifying knowledge that this wound, though not immediately fatal, could lead to a slow, agonizing death from gangrene, or at best, a crippling disability that ends your career forever. For gladiators and charioteers, life was a constant dance with death. Every performance carried an immediate risk of severe injury, broken bones, internal bleeding, head trauma, and gaping wounds. Even if they survived a fight, the cumulative effect of constant physical trauma meant their bodies were often shattered. Many developed chronic pain, debilitating injuries that never truly healed, and a reduced quality of life even in their prime. Their fame was built on their ability to withstand and inflict violence, but their bodies paid the ultimate brutal price. A common historical fact is that the average lifespan of a gladiator was significantly shorter than that of the general male population, even accounting for violent deaths in the arena. Many died in their 20s or 30s from cumulative injuries, infections, or direct combat. It was a career path with an almost guaranteed early expiration date. Imagine reaching the pinnacle of your profession, adored by millions, only to know that your peak also marks the beginning of your rapid decline and inevitable demise. Beyond the immediate trauma, ancient medicine offered little solace. While ancient physicians like Galen made significant strides, their understanding of infection, sterile practices, and complex internal ailments was minimal by modern standards. Surgeries were crude, often performed without effective anesthesia, and even simple wounds frequently led to fatal infections. A famous athlete might receive slightly better care than a common person, but even that superior care was woefully inadequate compared to today's standards. A unique or little-known detail is the practice of gladiators' blood as a cure. As we briefly touched upon in our previous discussion of brutal drinks, the blood of a fallen gladiator was sometimes consumed by spectators, particularly epileptics, in the belief that it could cure their ailments and transfer strength. While this gruesome practice highlights the desperate state of ancient medicine, it also underscores the extreme, almost mythical, reverence and exploitation of the gladiator's body, even in death. Imagine your very life force, your sacrifice, being believed to possess magical healing powers for others, even as you suffered. The academic debate still rages about the precise causes of death for many ancient celebrities, particularly those whose ailments weren't directly linked to performance. While some evidence points to specific diseases or injuries, discerning the exact role of lifestyle, poor diet, or chronic stress versus acute illness remains a challenge for historical epidemiologists. Consider the vocal artists, singers, orators, and actors. Their voices were their most valuable assets, but constantly pushing them to project across vast outdoor amphitheaters without microphones led to chronic strain, hoarseness, and potentially irreversible damage to their vocal cords. Respiratory infections, exacerbated by poor ventilation in crowded theaters and unsanitary living conditions, were also a constant threat. Imagine a celebrated singer, beloved by thousands, slowly losing their voice, their instrument failing them, leading to an agonizing end to their career and a profound loss of identity. The demanding travel schedules also contributed to illness, constantly moving between cities, exposed to different climates, new pathogens, and varying levels of sanitation. Ancient celebrities were frequently ill. Long, arduous journeys by land or sea were physically draining, leaving them vulnerable to sickness. There were no comfortable flights, no climate-controlled tour buses. Every journey was a test of endurance, often a vector for new diseases. You can almost feel the rocking of the ship, the chill dampness of a foreign inn, and the creeping fatigue that weakens your body, making you ripe for illness. The lifestyle itself, despite the outward glamour, often contributed to ill health. While some celebrities might have enjoyed lavish banquets, excessive indulgence in rich foods and potent wines, often containing lead, as we've learned, could lead to various ailments like gout, digestive issues, and chronic poisoning. The stress of constant performance, public scrutiny, and political intrigue would also take a severe toll on their mental and physical health, contributing to conditions like chronic fatigue and anxiety. It's like living a life of constant adrenaline, followed by profound crashes, utterly exhausting your body and mind. The lack of understanding of mental health meant that many ancient celebrities likely suffered from severe depression, anxiety, and other psychological ailments, with no hope of diagnosis or treatment. The pressure, the isolation, the fear of losing their fame, all these factors could lead to profound mental distress, which, when left unaddressed, could manifest in physical symptoms or destructive behaviors, further contributing to their misery and potentially shortening their lives. You might witness a once vibrant performer become withdrawn, erratic, or self-destructive, their inner turmoil completely invisible to an admiring but uncomprehending public. Even their very successes could lead to their demise. A wealthy charioteer might invest in elaborate but dangerous racing teams. A popular actor might fall victim to an envious rival's poison. Their prominence made them targets, not just for adulation, but for malice and assassination. Their fame provided a larger platform for their talents, but also painted a larger target on their backs. It's a bitter irony that the very thing they strove for could ultimately be their undoing. So, as you slowly drift deeper into your slumber, let the stark realities of illness, injury, and premature death for ancient celebrities settle upon you. Remember the immense physical and mental tolls they paid for their fleeting moments in the spotlight, and the brutal limitations of ancient medicine. Their lives, though often spectacular, were ultimately fragile, ending far too soon, a poignant reminder of the harsh realities of ancient fame. You've explored the tragic toll of illness and injury that shortened the dazzling careers of ancient celebrities. Now, let's consider what happens when the spotlight dims, or when death finally claims them, the often unpredictable legacy they left behind, the struggle against historical oblivion, and the painful reality of being misunderstood or even forgotten by the very future they helped shape. You find yourself standing in a dusty, forgotten corner of a vast Roman archive, perhaps centuries after the fall of the Western Roman Empire. The scrolls are brittle, the ink faded. You are searching for information about a famous poet or philosopher whose name was once on every lip, whose verses were recited in every villa. But the records are sparse, contradictory, or simply non-existent. Their once resounding voice is now a whisper, barely audible through the mists of time. You can almost feel the dry, crumbling parchment under your fingertips, the pervasive scent of aged paper and dust, and the profound sense of how easily even immense fame can dissipate into historical silence. For many ancient celebrities, their legacy was incredibly fragile. Without modern recording technology, their performances, their voices, their very essence were ephemeral. Once they ceased to perform, their direct impact faded. Their work might survive, but their personal magnetism, their unique stage presence, could only be imagined, never truly experienced by future generations. It's like being a groundbreaking musician in an era before recordings. Your concerts were legendary, but they exist only in the fading memories of those who witnessed them. A common historical fact is that much of ancient literature, philosophy, and historical records have been lost to time. Wars, fires, natural disasters, and simple neglect have erased countless works, meaning that the legacies of many celebrated figures from antiquity simply vanished, leaving only tantalizing fragments. Imagine dedicating your life to creating masterpieces, only for them to be consumed by flames or left to rot in a forgotten library. Even for those whose work survived, their personal narratives were often at the mercy of later interpretations. Imagine a celebrated Roman empress, powerful and influential in her time, whose complex life is later rewritten by biased historians or moralizing biographers centuries after her death. Her motivations are distorted, her relationships misconstrued, and her achievements minimized, replaced by a simplified, often villainous caricature. You can almost feel the injustice, the profound frustration of being irrevocably misrepresented, your true self buried under layers of historical spin and prejudice. A unique or little-known detail is the practice of ancient literary forgery and misattribution. Sometimes, lesser-known authors would attach their works to the names of famous poets or playwrights to gain readership. Conversely, genuinely famous works might be wrongly attributed to others, or even to anonymous sources, robbing the original creator of their due credit. This meant that even if your work survived, your name might not, or your reputation could be unfairly tied to works you never created. Imagine seeing your most celebrated poem published under someone else's name, your voice stolen by the currents of history. The academic debate still rages about the authenticity and authorship of many ancient texts attributed to famous figures. While scholars use linguistic analysis and historical context, definitively proving or disproving authorship for certain works remains a persistent challenge, leaving the true legacy of some ancient celebrities perpetually shrouded in scholarly dispute. Consider the Olympic victor, a hero in their time, immortalized in statues and verse. But how many of their names do you remember today? Beyond a handful of truly legendary figures like Milo of Croton, most have faded into obscurity, their individual triumphs dissolving into the collective history of the games. Their fame was immediate and intense, but rarely enduring. Their legacy became more about the institution they served the games than about their individual achievements. You can almost hear the roar of the crowd, now a distant echo, replaced by the silence of centuries, a poignant reminder of how quickly even the most glorious victories can be forgotten. The very nature of public performance meant that many ancient celebrities, particularly gladiators and charioteers, were seen as spectacles rather than individuals with complex inner lives. Their stories were simplified into triumphs and defeats, their personal struggles largely ignored by the historical record. Their misery, their daily grind, their personal relationships. These details were rarely considered worthy of preservation, leaving a one-dimensional legacy that failed to capture the true human cost of their fame. You were famous, but not necessarily understood, leaving a shallow, incomplete imprint on history. The lack of personal archives or dedicated biographers meant that much of their intimate lives remained undocumented. Unlike modern celebrities with meticulously kept journals, letters, and sprawling biographies, ancient stars often left behind only official records of their victories, public speeches, or artistic works. Their personal brand was managed by others, not by themselves. This contributed to their historical anonymity and the difficulty in truly empathizing with their lived experiences, making them distant figures, symbols rather than flesh and blood people. Even those who left behind substantial works, like famous philosophers or historians, often had their ideas reinterpreted, selectively quoted, or even deliberately distorted by later generations to suit new political or religious agendas. Their carefully constructed arguments could be simplified, their nuances lost, and their original intent twisted, making their intellectual legacy a battleground for future thinkers. Imagine your deepest thoughts and most carefully crafted arguments being used to support ideas you despised, your intellectual legacy hijacked by those who came after you. The brutal reality was that for many ancient celebrities, their fame was intensely present, consuming their lives, but ultimately transient in the grand sweep of history. They shone brightly for a brief period, then faded, their stories often lost, forgotten, or warped by the currents of time. Their legacy was not guaranteed, but a gamble against the ravages of war, neglect, and the fickle memory of future generations. So, as you slowly drift deeper into your slumber, let the humbling reality of ancient legacies settle upon you. Remember how easily even the brightest stars of antiquity could be extinguished by time, their voices silenced, their stories blurred, or their true selves misunderstood. It's a poignant reminder that while fame may dazzle in the moment, history's judgment is often silent, and its memory, at times, brutally short. You've explored the precarious legacies of ancient celebrities, how their hard-won fame could dissolve into historical obscurity or distortion. Now, as our journey through their miserable lives draws to a close, let's reflect on the eternal, often unforgiving cycle of fame and its unstated costs, a phenomenon that transcends time, connecting the struggles of the ancients to the stars of today. This is the final lingering thought on the price of public adoration. You find yourself in a quiet, almost meditative space, perhaps an empty theater after a performance, or a silent arena where echoes of past cheers still seem to linger. The lights are dim, casting long shadows. You are observing the enduring allure of the spotlight, a force that drew in countless individuals in antiquity, just as it does today. From the roaring crowds of the Roman Colosseum to the hushed reverence of a Greek philosophical lecture, the desire to be seen, to be celebrated, to leave a mark is a fundamental human drive. You can almost feel the powerful pull of that ambition, the intoxicating promise of immortality, even as you now understand its hidden, brutal costs. The brutal truth is that the very nature of celebrity has remained remarkably consistent over millennia. It's a transaction, public adoration, and sometimes wealth in exchange for personal freedom, privacy, and often peace of mind. Ancient celebrities paid this price with their bodies, their dignity, and their lives, just as modern stars battle the relentless demands of fame. The tools have changed, from public forums to social media, but the fundamental dynamic of a demanding public Consuming a carefully crafted persona remains the same. It's a deal with the devil, offered in various disguises throughout history, a common historical fact. If you consider the broader sweep of history, is that societies have always had their celebrities, figures who, for their exceptional talents, looks, or achievements, commanded widespread public attention and admiration, whether they were gladiators, poets, or even religious figures. The human fascination with extraordinary individuals is deeply ingrained, creating an inevitable, demanding spotlight. Consider the relentless pressure to stay relevant. For ancient stars, as for modern ones, resting on your laurels was a death sentence for your career. The public, fickle and always seeking novelty, quickly moved on to the next sensation. This forced a continuous cycle of performance, creation, or scandal, pushing celebrities to their physical and emotional limits. Imagine the constant anxiety of having to invent your next act, to perpetually outdo yourself, knowing that stagnation meant immediate irrelevance. It's a treadmill that never stops, and if you fall off, you're quickly forgotten. A unique or little-known detail about this eternal cycle is the role of public memory. In ancient times, without mass media, public memory was much more fluid and susceptible to local trends or political shifts. A celebrity famous in Rome might be unknown in Gaul, and their fame could vanish from memory within a generation unless actively preserved by powerful patrons or chroniclers. This meant their immortality was far more fragile than we might assume, making the push for continued relevance even more desperate. Imagine striving for eternal recognition, only for your name to be forgotten, even by your grandchildren. The academic debate still rages about the precise mechanisms through which cultural memory is preserved or lost, particularly for non-elite individuals like entertainers, while some argue for the power of institutions like the Olympic Games to preserve fame. Others highlight the random nature of historical survival, making the enduring legacy of any celebrity, ancient or modern, a fascinating subject of sociological and historical inquiry. The traps of wealth and indulgence also plagued ancient celebrities. While many endured brutal poverty, those who achieved immense riches often found themselves surrounded by sycophants, facing temptations of excessive indulgence that could lead to ill health, poor judgment, and ultimately ruin. The sudden influx of wealth, without the stabilizing force of true companionship or a grounded sense of self, could be as destructive as poverty. It's like being handed a feast after years of starvation, only to discover that too much of a good thing can be its own kind of poison. The lack of anonymity remains a constant burden. Even today, with all our technology, the truly famous struggle to simply live normal lives. Ancient celebrities faced this in an even more immediate, inescapable way. There were no hidden retreats, no private islands. Your city was your stage, your home was often known, and your movements were tracked by thousands. This perpetual visibility made a truly normal life impossible, leading to a profound sense of entrapment, even within the most luxurious settings. The cyclical nature of rise and fall is also a timeless, brutal truth. The meteoric rise of an unknown talent, the thrilling peak of their fame, and the inevitable, often painful decline are patterns seen throughout history. Ancient celebrities experienced these cycles with a raw intensity, often with no safety net to cushion their fall. The exhilaration of the climb was always shadowed by the dread of the descent. It's a roller coaster that you can't get off, no matter how nauseous it makes you. Ultimately, the lives of ancient celebrities, for all their superficial glamour, offer a poignant reflection on the enduring costs of fame. They remind us that the spotlight, no matter how bright, often casts the darkest shadows, and that the price of public adoration has always been a heavy one. It demands not just talent and dedication, but often the sacrifice of privacy, autonomy, and even physical well-being. They walked a tightrope, high above the masses, providing entertainment and distraction, while their own lives, unseen by the cheering crowds, were often a testament to quiet desperation and profound suffering. Their stories, though millennia apart, echo the struggles of modern stars, reminding us that some miseries are truly timeless. So, as you finally settle into a deep, peaceful slumber, let the profound, enduring lessons of ancient fame resonate within you. Cherish the quiet comfort of your bed, the stillness of the night, and the precious gift of your own privacy, a luxury that countless celebrated figures of the past could only dream of.